on Vaticano this week. We hear from this Archbishop, the Vatican's point man for the Year of Faith. The coming canonization of Blessed Kateri Tekakwitha is hailed as a triumph for Native Americans. Rome's Pontifical University of the Holy Cross prepares to host journalists looking for pointers on Vatican coverage, and we take a tour of one of the most beautiful churches in the Eternal City. All this and a word with some newlyweds after receiving the Pope's blessing on Vaticano. With Pope Benedict's Year of Faith about to be inaugurated, initiatives and events for the year to come are being organised. This Archbishop in charge of the Vatican's Office for New Evangelization is leading the charge from Rome.
Probably our life is more poor of our people. We are in a peculiar moment, it's a moment of crisis, a big crisis, and also faith is in a dramatic situation. For this reason, I think that first of all, we should support our believers in the knowledge of faith, in the celebration of faith, and to be also witness of faith. And just for that, probably also other people that they have the desire of God, but they cannot find sign of faith, they can probably, with our witness, they can be also able to challenge for some question, and one of the questions sure should be the question about faith. I'm sure that without faith, probably our life is more poor.
This website was recently rolled out by the Vatican's Council for New Evangelization to keep the world updated. Beginning with the opening of the Year of Faith on October the 11th, it will chart the events in Rome and around the rest of the globe. There
are several and different events. I cannot say that there is one more important than the others. There is events that are in complementary among all the events of the Year of Faith. Of course, I explained the events that we do in Rome, in the Eternal City, and together with the Holy Father. But several other events will be done by the Bishops' Conference or in the diocese, in Scotland or wherever, and in the States, or by parishes and movement association. I'd like to say that all the events that we want to organize in Rome are religious and cultural. So there is not just some religious events, but there is also cultural events, because of faith. Of course, should be pray and celebrate, but faith is also a source for culture and for progress within society. And for this reason, I can say that in the different aspects, we would like to show the unity of our faith.
The website includes this new logo as well, designed by an Italian architect specifically for the year to come.
The significance of the logo is very simple. Both is the sign of the Church, and you can see this is a moment of movement for not so just for the Church, but we look at the Church first of all. But we have the cross, and the cross is the sign of love, is the sign of our faith. And together with the cross, there is a sign, the sign of the Eucharist. And the Eucharist is for us the center of our life, is the center of the life of faith. For this reason, we can say that all together is the Church within faith and doing the company of faith of the world of today.
Besides all the initiatives looking forward, there is also a wish to look back, to revisit the Second Vatican Council on the 50th anniversary of its opening.
50 years, half century is really a very important moment. We cannot understand the history of the Church without a reference to the teaching of the Vatican II. Well, we can also say that not all the teaching of the Vatican II was understood in the right way, and not all the teaching is understood until today. So there is a progress also, because it was a richness, the Vatican II, not just theologically speaking, but also for our relation with the world, for the life of the Church and the different categories also within the Church. There is a richness of the Vatican II that is very difficult to say and to synthesize in few words. But I think that the desire of people, of the Father of the Council, and people who were perhaps on the Council and they are still living, probably they think and they would like that it will be also for the next 50 years the very like a star for the orientation of our teaching and our life.
On October the 21st this year, Blessed Kateri Tekakwitha will become the first Native American saint in the history of the Church. For one bishop from South Dakota, her example is a particularly inspiring one for the faithful of his diocese.
I think, the fact that, she began to embrace the Catholic faith, it was a real hardship for her. Her parents, her family rejected her, her tribe rejected her. And so in the midst of her challenges and rejection, she, stayed true to the faith and her love for Jesus Christ. And I think that in and of itself will bring, the Lakota people of South Dakota great hope. Well, I spoke with the Holy Father. I just shared with them, the challenges that the Native American people on the reservations in western South Dakota have. They're located in the 5 poorest counties in the United States, and a lot of drug and alcohol abuse, domestic violence and crime, and and the incident of the suicide rate, especially among young people, is far above the national average. And so they have great challenges which they face each and every day. They do have a vibrant spirit of those who are practicing their faith. And so what we try to do is bring the gospel to them on the reservation and try to help them in any way that we can. There's programs, I spoke with the Holy Father about programs that are being offered to help them with the challenges that they have. But still, the challenges remain. They've been dealing with these challenges for many years. But I think with the canonization of Blessed Kateri Tekakwitha in October, they're very excited about that. It's the first Native American woman canonized as saint, and so they're really she will really be a symbol for them. And it's our hope that in the midst of all of that, that in itself will inspire them and allow them to be drawn deeper into their own faith. That will help them in their situation. Again, I think this canonization of Blessed Kateri will be a great inspiration and give them hope in their lives. Obviously, the Native Americans, they're poor, and so this financial situation to get them over here will be a great challenge. I know some will come. As to how many, at least from my diocese, we don't know yet. We don't have a sense of that at the moment. They also, some of them, as we're able to bring some of their own spirituality into Catholicism, and obviously that's allowed by the Church. That's very important to them. That our liturgies have something that they cherish in their own native spirituality as a part of that, and that's very important to them in their life of faith.
Here's hoping for a great turnout in October for the canonization, at which another 6 saints will be officially recognised. Welcome back. You're watching Vaticano.
One of the fascinating things about the coverage of the Church in recent years is that more and more attention is being given to the Church in Rome, and it's becoming more and more difficult to cover Catholic stories at the local level, whether you're in New York or Washington or London or Mexico or wherever you happen to be.
And that's why this priest and others at one university in Rome have put together an educational initiative for world journalists.
This fall, the Pontifical University of the Holy Cross is going to be offering for the third time its Church Up Close seminar, which is a professional seminar for journalists from all over the world. It's done in English, and it's essentially a crash course designed to give journalists who have to write about the Church the basic instruments that they need to understand the stories that they're supposed to cover. In other words, a sense of the geography of the Vatican, who's who, what are the important issues, how the Church functions in Rome, which for many people is a mystery, and we're trying to clear that up. The Church in Rome is a very complicated world, and there's many different people and many different offices. All of them have special tasks, and most journalists who write about this have only a faint inkling, right, of how the different personalities and offices relate to one another. And when you're covering the Church, it's absolutely essential, right, to have an understanding of basic canon law, things like that. That's why one of the things that we offer is a talk by a canon lawyer, just trying to set out, what offices of the Church handle which issues and how they relate to each other. So that's a very important idea, just the structure, the governmental structure of the Church. And when people are reading a newspaper story about events in Rome, they should always take it with a grain of salt. And you should always assume that there's more to the story than what is appearing in your local newspaper.
This couple will be participating in the seminar as presenters. They are looking to make its third edition a memorable one.
Where do you begin if you're a writer? Well, the point of this program is to give these journalists two things: context and contacts. So they come to Rome and they get to learn about the Catholic Church right in its home, right in the heart of where things happen. And they do that by listening to various speakers every day, speakers who talk about the Church and culture. They talk about the Church and faith, the faith and science. They talk about the Church and media, these sorts of things. And then they also get to make contacts. They get to meet people so that they know who to get in touch with when a story breaks, right? Who's the right person who's going to give them the answers that they're looking for when a story breaks out.
While people are coming here to understand how to cover the Church, we try to help them not just to understand the Church, but the city that was built upon the martyrs of Peter and Paul, who were martyred right here in Rome.
Church Up Close seminar will be held in Rome from September the 10th to September the 16th.
I actually am the worship leader at our church. I lead music on Sunday nights for our church, and we introduced after Mass one Sunday night, and she started singing, and I thought it was a great way to get her number was to get her to sing with us. So I kind of subtly got that and started talking to her, and yeah, we met from there and went on a few dates, and we're actually on our honeymoon right now. So it's our last day of our honeymoon, and we go home tomorrow.
Well, I had actually, one day I asked Andrew, I said, Andrew, what is one of your biggest dreams in life? And he looked at me and he said, to get my marriage blessed by the Pope. So, which I didn't know that was possible, but so when we were going on our honeymoon, we made it happen because I knew that it was in the Wednesday audience. So.
It's been great. We met a couple from Miami that was sitting next to us, which was really interesting, and there was lots, I think, of international couples around us. There was more than I expected. I think there were probably 15 couples that were there, but it was a blessing to meet them. So it's been great. We've really enjoyed our time here, and We're tired. We've been traveling for a little over a week now, so it's kind of the end of our tour, so to speak, and we chose to see things rather than go sit on a beach, but we've really liked it, and I know it's something that we won't forget. So
it was a nice way to wrap up our honeymoon, and something that we just kept looking forward to each day. It was like, okay, Wednesday's coming.
To do like the McGowans did and book the free tickets for the papal audience, just married couples need to only contact the US Bishop's Pilgrim Office in Rome and bring their marriage certificate. This American expat in Rome has dedicated his retirement to studying and sharing the secrets of the city. Today he's here in the heart of the city centre to give us a unique look at the first church in Rome dedicated to Mary.
Well, we are standing here in Piazza Santa Maria in Trastevere, in the center of the old Trastevere neighborhood in Rome. And we are in front of the Basilica of Santa Maria in Trastevere. In order to appreciate some of the things that we will see inside the Basilica, we have to know a little bit about the history of why the church was built on this spot. Well, before the church was ever here, there was a building here which the Romans called a taberna meritoria, which was a kind of inn for retired Roman soldiers. Well, one day in 38 BC, there was an unexplained flow of oil, or an oily-like liquid, which came up from the ground on this spot and flowed for one full day. Well, at that time, this area was populated primarily by Jewish families. The Jews interpreted this flow of oil as a sign of the imminent coming of the Messiah. Well, not long after that, Jesus Christ was born. The Jews, of course, did not accept Christ as their Messiah, but the early Christians, looking back at that unexplained flow of oil, said that this must have meant the coming of Christ, because the word Christ, of course, means the anointed one, and anointing takes place with oil. So the Taberna Meritoria became a place of pilgrimage to the early Christians. They would come and gather here and say prayers. On either side of Mary, you see a row of 5 female figures, 5 female saints. Each one is holding in her hands an oil lamp. There are many different interpretations as to what that's supposed to mean. Personally, I like the interpretation that the artist wanted to reflect the story of the flow of oil on this spot, and that people are anointed with oil, and that perhaps the oil is being brought to anoint the child Jesus in the center. Above the mosaic, you see what remains of a fresco. The fresco was done in the 1800s, and it's almost completely gone by now, as well. But the mosaic, of course, will last forever. Got it?
Welcome back. You're watching Vaticano.
Now we're in the atrium of the church, or the portico, which was not part of the original church. This was added in the early 1700s. And when they built this area, they decorated it in a very interesting way. you can see that there are tombstone inscriptions or fragments of tombstone inscriptions on the walls. These were taken in the 1700s from the catacombs, which at that time were in a state of disrepair. So they brought them here to use to decorate the walls of the atrium. They talk about real people. These are not from tombs of popes and cardinals and bishops and emperors, but from everyday people in everyday life. And some of them we can read completely. Let's look at this one right here, for example, which is rather famous because it has a sketch of the person who was buried here. It was the tomb of a child, and the only thing we're told about him is his name, which is Maximinus, and then we're told that he lived for 9 years and 7 months. We don't know who Maximinus was. We don't know how he died or when he died. But here it is for all posterity to see that he really lived. He's shown in the attitude of prayer as the early Christians prayed in this manner. Well, now we're inside the basilica. One of the first things that many people notice when they come in is the magnificent floor. This is a marble floor in geometric design. It's called a cosmatesque floor because this type of geometric design was invented or created by a medieval family by the name of the Cosmati brothers. Many of the ancient churches in Rome have the same kind of floor. Another thing we want to notice are the columns on either side, which separate the main aisle from the two side aisles. You'll notice that the columns are all different. These are monolithic columns, which means that they are made out of one solid piece. They're granite, monolithic granite columns. And they come from the baths of Caracalla, the 3rd century baths of Caracalla. When the church was being rebuilt in the 1100s, these columns were taken from the ancient baths and used in the church. Another thing people are quick to notice is the ceiling. The ceiling is from the 17th century. You have to remember that all of these old churches are a work in progress. The church wasn't built just in 1140. So in the 1600s, the ceiling was replaced. And it's a beautiful wooden ceiling, which is gold-plated, with a beautiful painting of the Assumption of Mary in the center.
Though the basilica is full of masterpieces, perhaps the most striking works of art are the mosaics. They cover the church's back wall. Those around and under the arch within the half-dome apse are nothing short of spectacular.
On the inside face of the arch is a series of figures which show Christ and his mother Mary seated on the same throne. And it's very interesting and very human because look carefully and you'll see that Jesus has his right arm around his mother's shoulder. And then the other characters in the scene, on the far left is the one you want to notice because it represents Pope Innocent II, who is the Pope who had the church rebuilt in the 1100s.
While there are many centuries-old works that evoke the long history of the basilica, it's the basilica's role in the heart of the life of the Trastevere neighbourhood that is most inspiring.
This is one of the ancient sites of the Christian Rome, which has, as you see, many historical memories and heritage, but which is alive today because here the liturgical life and the love for the poor are intertwined and benefit one of the other. And thanks to the presence of the community of Sant'Egidio in this parish, there is a daily vesper, a daily prayer, which end the day in the evening, and it's one of the only few churches open since the early morning up to 9:30 p.m. That means it follows the rhythms of the life of the people, offering, of course, Eucharistic liturgies, prayer, a seed of universality, and there are many groups, juvenile groups, elderly, disabled. The liturgical life on Sunday, it's a joyful one. One can see the assembly gather together where everybody has a place, and the fact we are in Rome and the fact that here the Blessed John Paul II came twice is meaningful. And I think that in a way the contribute of this parish to the life of the Christians in the center of Rome, it's a mirror of the attractive power of the gospel.